Mark, that
Hey,
doesn't
Mark,
work.
can you hear me? Can you guys hear me at all? Maybe a little bit. Hey, Mark, can you hear me? I think we're going to get started, but I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me out there? You can a little bit? Okay, perfect. And since I'm just now turning my phones off, if anybody else needs to, I'll be your reminder since I've forgotten that sometimes. So thank you all for joining us this evening. It's good to see different faces out here, and I love that. So as we get started, I'm going to assume we're live. Yep. And so welcome to those that are joining online. And we have the privilege every time we start a city council meeting to have someone come open us in prayer. And we've asked Kelly Sears with Christian Faith Center to come. So Kelly, thank you for opening us in prayer. And then we'll follow that with a pledge. Is it on? No, it's not on. It's the mic itself is on. I think it's Mark's getting it on. Try it now.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
First of all, I just want to say to all of you that you're greatly respected, highly appreciated, and continually prayed for. Father God, tonight, we just thank you for the opportunity that we still have, the freedom that we still have to come before you. And Lord, I pray for these exemplary leaders in our community for wisdom, insight, and perspective in a time where there are no easy answers, when not knowing exactly what to do in every situation. I pray that you would give them supernatural wisdom to know what to do, to make a way when there seems to be no way, and that you would guide them. And Father, I pray for our entire community that we would continue to do what love demands, because love offers compassion, shows respect, and seeks understanding. Lord, would we continue to do that? And would we continue to grow as a community as we love our country, our community, and each other? And we pray these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Before we do roll call, I just have to say one thing, and I noticed Kelly as she looked at each of our council members. And so many times it's about the mayor. People talk about the mayor. And I tell you what, as the council knows, it's not about the mayor. The role of the mayor is important, but the role of city council is so critically important. And I just want to say to each of you guys, we're really blessed to have you leading our city. And I want to say thank you. So thank you all. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Bruner?
Here.
Mucci?
Here.
Levi?
Present.
Haverfield?
Here.
Bauer?
Here.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, and I don't have any amendments to the agenda. Does anyone have any that they know of? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And the next item is our proclamations, and we don't have any proclamations this evening. And so we'll move to the next item, which is a Nampa resident wishing to speak on an agenda item or non-agenda item. And do you have the sign-up list?
I don't have anybody signed up.
Okay.
There was no sign-up list when I walked in.
I'm so sorry. So you know what? If you are here to speak, we would love to hear from you. And then if there's anyone else that intended to sign up, you can be next. And so you have 3 minutes, and go ahead and tell us your name and address and what you're here to
Okay,
talk about.
and just to clarify, I'm not a Nampa resident, I'm a Caldwell resident. However, I do have a Nampa business, and so I just want to clarify that. My name is Mila Wood. My address is 11505 Bass Lane, Caldwell, Idaho. And I am a member of the C5 committee, which I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of our members come before you. We discuss a lot of important issues. And one of the things that has come to our attention, and we've been talking about a little bit more, is some of the cancel culture and some of the things that happen in the world around us. At a local university here, and I can tell you that these uncomfortable conversations are coming a little bit closer in our community than we would probably like. So I came to you to present this simple resolution, and the basic idea is unifying on the thought that all humans matter. So I will read that for you quickly, and then I will be done, and which I do appreciate all of you guys. It's super, super hard work that you do, and thank you very much. Okay, the City Council of the City of Nampa declares that, whereas we, the people of the United States, Idaho, Canyon County, and Nampa City are guaranteed a system of government called a republic. And whereas states and individuals have abused our republic, using it to enslave and oppress human beings, and our nation having endured a civil war to end slavery, and whereas our nation having endured Jim Crow laws, black code, segregation, lynchings, bigotry, and other atrocious violations of human rights, and whereas our nation, state, and communities are dangerously polarized and unnecessarily damaged by deceptive allegations and promotion of modern systemic racism. And whereas words and language are being politically weaponized to divide our nation, our state, and communities, and whereas our nation, state, and communities need to reconcile with each other and progress towards human dignity, freedom, opportunity, and prosperity for all humans into the 21st century. Now, therefore, the City Council of Nampa do resolve as follows: that we openly and unanimously reject and abhor racial supremacy in all forms. Number two, that we may unanimously reject the dangerous polarization caused by the toxic concept and practice of modern systemic racism. And number three, that we seek to reconcile our nation, state, and communities past in progress towards human dignity, freedom, opportunity, and prosperity for all into the 21st century. Lastly, number four, that we embrace the unifying statement and the oneness of Martin Luther King's beautiful historical speech. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. So I would just urge that you take into consideration adopting this resolution for all of us in a community to embrace the unification of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anyone else? And we will take that into consideration, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mary Kling, if I could just say a word or two. Thank you, Mila. We've been talking about that in the 5C group, and you know it hits a different persons, different people, different in every aspect of your heart. And thank God we live in Nampa. We haven't had this issue, but when Mila brought it up, I felt heartened that it is could and will be here someday if it's not here now. But you know, thank you for taking it on and always reminding us that we could always do better. So God bless you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Victor. And it is a good reminder of how we act and what we express to others in our community. And my hope is that our community will always be one that does not ever reflect any discriminatory actions racially. So, thank you. So is there anyone else this evening that had intended to sign up to speak for 3 minutes? Yes. Go ahead and come forward, and thank you for sharing your name and address and what your topic is.
My name is Maggie Goff. My address is 2554 East Cinnamon Lane, Nampa, Idaho, and I'm a child of God. God has been putting on my heart a lot lately about the Underground Railroad and this whole issue of the atrocities that have been committed against the Black people. And in watching these videos, what I've noticed, though, is a lot of those people were willing to be born into slavery, live in slavery, and die in slavery. And there was very few people that actually were willing to stand up and were willing to run, were willing to fight back against it. And then there was also the people that were white who, even though some of them were too poor to own slaves, or maybe they treated their slaves well, they also didn't fight back against the wrong thoughts and what was happening in the culture. And so I don't actually see that struggle between black and white. I see that struggle against a mindset that would allow a group of people, no matter their color, to suppress another group of people, and we're not willing to stand up and fight back. And I see that continuing to happen over and over again, where different groups of all colors. So I would also like to take color out of the equation and just put it towards mindset. We need to be willing to stand up and oppose wrong mindsets when they try to oppress any people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Appreciate you coming and taking a couple minutes to share. Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended to speak today? Okay. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is mayor and council comments. And Rick, I'm going to have you up really quickly, and I'll have you come up here to speak. And while you're walking up here, I just want to say happy birthday to Darrell Bruner. Shall we sing you happy
let's sing happy
birthday? I think we have to.
Just, she's the only one that can sing, I understand, so.
Okay, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Darrell. Happy birthday to you.
Well, I didn't know what that 50 was gonna feel like, but
It is so tremendous.
let's try 67. I don't hide my age, you can tell. Okay.
Well, happy birthday.
I still have a few more hours, by the way.
Yeah, tomorrow, but couldn't miss the day.
All right.
Okay, legislative update.
Mayor, Council, happy birthday, Councilman Bruner. So quick update, the big news, if you haven't seen the Sunday paper, there was a feature article, front page Sunday on the complex issue of property taxes. And so if you haven't had a chance to check that article out, I think it does a good job. There's a lot of information there from Caney County, Nampa, Meridian, Star, and how property taxes are really a regional challenge here. Senate Bill 1108 has been on the third reading calendar for a couple days now, but they have not taken it up for a vote yet. So I don't know when they're going to get to vote on Senate Bill 1108. That's the bill by Rice that says new construction would come in at a 25% discount, essentially a 75% pay-in into the budget contribution to the local budget, as opposed to new growth coming in at its full contribution. So we're tracking that, and obviously that's the big issue, and there's a lot of energy that's been devoted to that issue. Mayor's office, Amy Mayor, has engaged the issue. The fire department, Chief Carpenter, and team have, of course, expressed concern. So if you've been watching the news last week, a lot of the stuff has hit the news. So we are tracking that. A couple other things. Senate did vote today on the districting clarification. That was a bill that was already passed last year, and so they did vote unanimously in the Senate today. adopt some of the fixes, the changes to it. So as I articulated last time, this fall, seats 1, 3, and 5 would be up for a 2-year at-large term. And then in 2013, all 6 seats would be up at the same time based on districts. Really, the fixed language was introduced really to help Boise because the census doesn't come out until September, and they would really have a tight time frame to try to identify districts for their council races. So it gives us a 2-year pause, but it does make seats 1, 3, and 5 a 2-year term, and then subject to 2, 4, and 6 would then be a 2-year term based on districts in 2013, with 1, 3, and 5 being a 4-year term, and then thereafter everything would be a 4-year term with the staggering. So I'll quiz you on that, or not. So I know there's some looks there, but that's how it'll be implemented. We did write a memo last week in opposition to House Bill 197. It was supposed to be heard in committee today, House Judiciary Rules. Friday when I left, it was on their agenda. Today, it was removed from their agenda. So we're tracking that, and that's
what
a
is
House
that?
bill
Thank you.
that removes from the city the ability to cite misdemeanor violations at the local level. And so cities would not be allowed to have any misdemeanor citations. And it would also cap what the fines would be. So we assured them in the memo that we don't seek to be punitive as a city, but to remove that tool. There are some people who would opt to gladly just pay a small fine and not fix the problem when it violates code and the desired will of mayor, council, in this community when you carefully craft code to try to deter behavior that you don't want to see in the city. So we'll track that. So those are the main ones. There's like 450 bills right now that have a print. There's thousands and thousands of pages if you want to read each bill, statement of purpose, and all of I have not read, just to be for the record, I have not read all thousands and thousands of pages of the 400 and something bills. So, but one other local one that would affect the county that the county did weigh in favorably, we have not weighed in on, is Representative Adams. It did get passed out of the House, and it would exempt or relax some of the the emission testing if we meet a certain criteria with the air quality control. And I know that that's been a matter that this community's been interested in for some time. So that did pass out of the House, and it'll go over to the Senate, and we'll see what happens there. But the Canyon County, all of the officers did voice their support for that bill. So hoping that it would help this community. So any questions? There are no.
Rick, so as you're explaining to us with the districting, it's conceivable that all 6 seats could flip and you'd have no continuity?
Yep.
You don't,
So
okay.
in 2013,
2023, right?
in 2020.
I like the younger part of it, though.
We're going to quiz you.
2023, I'm just trying to deny that we're really in 2021 right now.
2013 was a good year. Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, the districts, all 6 would be up at the same time, and it is possible based on the districting that you would have to meet the residency requirement to live within the district in order to qualify for running for that race. So we'll see in 2023 how that affects people. And just a reminder to the public that's watching, right now you get to vote every 2 years for 3 of the council seats, but this will change. You'll vote once every 4 years for 1 seat. So, and so they're really trying to identify districts, establish the residency requirements, and the only people who can vote once every 4 years are the people in that district for that district.
Rick, I was thinking that the first year so it is once every 4 years. They're not going to stagger them?
Oh, well, yeah,
The
if you live
first
in a
year-
district, you only get to vote once every 4 years. Of course, there will be elections staggered, but you don't
Right.
get to vote on the other seats, so.
Correct, but it won't, once we do the initial 6 all at one time, there isn't a likelihood of 6 turning over at the same time again, because we don't vote on all 6 every 4 years.
Correct.
I just want to make
collectively.
that
But
clear.
Mayor, what Councilwoman Namachi is saying is that in 23, all 6 seats could turn.
They could, and that is scary, because institutional knowledge is critical. The decisions that are made here are so important, and institutional knowledge is important. So, yeah, that could be a big thing.
Mayor. So Rick, I know I've talked to the mayor about this, maybe some of the other councilmen. isn't, we have 2 years to somehow make an adjustment to the districting, or each person from each district, is make 2 at large. And I think we should work on that next year, see whether the legislators will do that, depending on what we come up with in our district. So I'd like to keep, council members, I'd like for you to all keep that in your mind. And if we can, direct the legislators next year to amend it and see what happens.
And Victor, I did actually send that in this year.
Oh, you did?
Sure did, but because of the legislation, and Rick can speak to this, last year it was real important that they got the amendments done this year that they did. And Rick, I think there was some discussion that you could maybe speak to regarding,
Yeah, well, I think Councilman Bruner as well, I think, if I recollect correctly, you also support that idea of having,
Well,
seats
I
versus a couple
support,
at
and this
large.
was 2 years ago, not to get into the
Yeah.
weeds here, but with legal, we were waiting on a little more, I wish I would have been a little more proactive. My main proposal was 2 districts, as Spokane has, the north and the south, and then you would have 2 in each district, plus an at large could be in either district. And that was my proposal, where you still divide it up, but you don't go into 6 districts, so hopefully to keep some of that. My one question, though, is do we have a projected time? I realize the census will determine, but when actually these districts would actually be laid out for the city of Nampa, and who's doing that for us?
so I think Amy got word that it should be released in September. So that's when the new census
Okay.
data will come out, and it'll most likely confirm that Nampa is 100,000 plus. And
so
So
the
start the
districts, though, we will follow the redistricting that takes place at the state level, right? With all the new districts, then we'll follow that. We're not in those same ones, but we'll need to align somewhat. So that's why it's so important that in 2021, it's way too early to get this done because we don't even know what they are. So it'll give us 2022 to figure it out. But we'll be following the redistricting that takes place as a result of the census at the legislative level, and then we'll move forward.
And
Mayor?
hopefully that will be identified in 2022, so people would have ample time when they're considering running for office potentially in 2023 to know what the districts are. And the way it is, right, it is trying to protect the integrity of each precinct, and tries to avoid breaking precincts up. That would be mass confusion, so. And we'll see. And I don't know if precincts are subject to potential change over the next couple of years, and we need to look at that information. So. Sorry, Councilman.
Excuse me, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. And I will state again where I stand on it. I spent 12 hours last year writing to our legislators about what I felt about this bill. And I do not support it in any manner. I see it as districts in a city break a city up, because now you have your coveted little area that you're standing up for. We're a city, we're a community. We have quality of life here that I don't want to see broken up. And when I look at what would be the purpose as to why we would be, or the state would be going to the cities and telling the cities what they're going to do and how they're going to have their council represent them. And I am totally in favor, and I am looking for people to go with me and to start I'm trying to think of the word, get a group of people together that will approach the state legislatures, because I do believe it was an overstep on their part to tell the cities what we're going to do with our elections and how we're going to represent the people. And if you think about it, where we're divided up into districts, some of you have made some really good points, but another thing I find ironic, if we're representing a district, but we're coming to a council meeting, are we excusing or recusing ourselves from every matter that doesn't pertain to our district? Because it kind of seems odd that we are voting for things that pertain to the whole city of Nampa if we're supposed to be representing a district. Because when it really comes down to it, when are we voting on something where we're representing our district? So to me, there's just a lot of loopholes, and people that want to join me to write letters, contact me, because I really would like to see this overturned.
Mayor, if I may ask, do we have any idea where Meridian is on this, as far as what their sense is? Because my understanding is, and I'll put it out there, is the main reason this is being done, and I'm not going to put Senator Lakey on the spot, but it's Boise, where five out of the 6 council people are from the same end, north end of Boise, and how that votes. But have we talked to anyone from Meridian?
So Meridian and former legal counsel at the time from Nampa was engaged in meeting with I think Senator Winder, who introduced the bill, and there was initial support on some language. Admittedly, I won't go into all the fine details, but the language and what emerged was slightly different than what was agreed upon. However, the cities generally stayed supportive, realizing that it was really going to create impact on Boise. But yes, I mean, Senator Winder has cited, for example, that people in his subdivision don't even know who or feel like they have access to a council member. And so certainly if a city gets really large, some people feel that if all 5 or all 6 council members live in one concentrated square mile and one end of city, and the others feel like maybe they're voiceless or whatnot. I know that that's been voiced as one of the reasons for this. And so certainly we wish we would have had more flexibility in the districts, and I know mayor and council would have appreciated that. I know Representative Crane, when he came, admittedly it was early on in the formation of it, he at least voiced here in that report that he was hoping that there would be some flexibility and compromise with cities being able to navigate it a little bit. But the language as it stands would not allow the flexibility of at-large districts or even at-large voting with the residency requirement of the districts. So maybe we can introduce it next year as a fix, and maybe we can consult with legal to see if legal can give us any feedback or analysis as far as on the statute and how it speaks to how districts need to be made up, and whether you can have a hybrid like there are in other cities.
Yeah, there are in other.
So,
Thank you, Rick.
yes, ma'am.
Councilman Hatterfield, I think you have a comment. And I appreciate you being prepared for that today.
Thank you, Mayor. For the council's consideration, there's been quite a bit of dialogue that's been back and forth about Senate Bill 1108 and the impact to larger cities, smaller cities, all cities. So I'm kind of echoing, in a sense, the beginning statements that City of Meridian made, so that we could either have a unified voice or at least a somewhat further dialogue as a council as this moves forward. But if you bear with me, I'll just read this. As we have been informed, the Idaho State Legislature is considering a variety of different options of tax reform that will impact the city of Nampa directly on how we provide future services with growth or with changes to the growth that has already been approved. Senate Bill 1108 will substantially impact our service levels and limit our ability to keep up with growth needs. We have identified the need of 30-plus law enforcement officers, and that's just as of this evening in my conversations with Brad Daniels. And Chief Carpenter, another 30-plus firefighters that are needed for our community as it is. And we have in the immediate need for the construction of Fire Station number 6, and have identified at least 2 more stations needed for our growing community in the years to come. The arbitrary budget caps proposed in Senate Bill 1108 have an anticipated impact of nearly $17 million. I might be off $1 million one way or the other over the next 8 years, which will drastically impact our ability to provide needed services. The result would be longer response times due to the location of current services and increased calls of service. By only allowing an arbitrary percentage to be collected, this bill would transfer the cost of services to existing homeowners or would require a reduction to the level of service to our residents. With that said, I would propose that we caution applicants that we will likely delay hearings for the next 6 weeks until we have further information from the legislature and are provided time to analyze the impacts that this legislation may have on our ability to provide services. But I would propose this proposed delay would exclude any infill development of 5 acres or less. That's the same area that Meridian chose. Because of the unknowns going forward regarding Senate Bill 1108 and how it could dramatically affect our city and our service levels, I believe the prudent action is to take a pause. To those that represent Nampa in the state legislature, thank you. Please know that the city of Nampa and this body desires to be a part of the solution and would welcome to be a part of the discussion going forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Haverfield. I appreciate you sharing that. Is there any further comment on that subject before we move forward? No? One other item on our updates is that we did just close our community survey, and we have about 1,265 responses. We'd like to get 2,000 responses. Last year, I think we only got 800 something, so we feel at least we have more than we had last year. And just for the public, we listen to those surveys, and the council gives consideration as we look at staffing and even budget prioritization on those surveys. So to those that completed them, thank you so much, because it really helps guide our city. We need to hear from our people. So we'll be getting that information to you guys shortly.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
are you, did I interrupt?
Nope.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, I talked to a couple of the golfers this weekend, and I realized that there's going to be the Kiwanis Golf Tournament, right, Kenny? Yeah, and then there's going to be the Mayor's Cup, and then there's going to be the Rotary. So I think, Mayor and fellow council, I would like to ask you to consider going back to the old shotgun start, and instead of the way they're doing it now, which is tea time in the morning or whenever, and then you leave. And with still keeping the COVID in accordance with the safety rules. And that can be done. For example, if a team shows up, they just go out to number 8. A team shows up, they go to number 6 and don't mingle around. You know, that would be, I think, something that we would like to do. And I advised them that I would bring it to you for your consideration. So there you go.
So last year for the Mayor's Golf Tournament, everybody gathered and then they went to their respective holes, but they did gather. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
so yes,
It's okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. I'll-
It's outside. It's the first one we're doing is June 11th. Kiwanis is, I think we'll be in good shape. Yeah, and we did a good job last year.
Yes.
Did a really
Well-
good job. Everybody did it appropriately, and I think we'll be fine.
The Kiwanis of Nampa, right? Dave Ferdinand's group? Yeah, they started in May, and then the Mayor's Cup. So, yeah, okay, thank you. Did you get that, Darren? That's, okay, good.
I didn't ask the rest of the council.
You good?
I see thumbs up. As far as doing it the way we used to do it, when we gather all together, but we're standing outside and then everybody goes to the respective holes. So you actually have the opportunity to gather. So, are we good? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Would
Is
you-
there anything else?
Would you pass that on to the okay.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. We do not have any agency or commission reports, and we have no staff reports. How's that? So we're just going to move right into new business. So let's start with action item 5.1, and this is a resolution for appointment of Larry Olmsted to the Fire District Advisory Committee to replace Rick Hogebold. And we so appreciate the fact that Larry would like to serve in that capacity, and Rick is just there to help support in the meantime, so moved.
I had to think long and hard, but I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Other than a big thank you. Larry, we appreciate you. Thank you for all you do. I tell you, you've served our community well, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Absolutely.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Say a few words.
Mayor, Larry would have read all those 4,000 pages, I know, so. Where is Rick? Okay. Okay.
All righty, so item 5.2 on the agenda is an action item. This is to authorize the piggyback purchase of chip seal oils from Idaho Asphalt Supply at an estimated cost of $560,000 for the street division. This is our annual purchase, and it's approved in the FY21 budget.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 5.3 is an action item, and this is the mayor to sign an agreement with Street Scan for the pavement management software in the amount of $72,800 for the street division, and this is approved in the FY21 budget and reviewed and approved by legal.
Mayor, I'm going to motion on that because I read that it was going to save us money in the long run. So,
Second.
So move.
And seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
And Darren, you can come on up. So the next action item 5.4 is to approve the purchase and sales agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the Nampa School District property located at 920 Lakeville Avenue for $415,000. This has been reviewed by legal, and the funding source are impact fees, but I did ask Darren to come forward. I think I'll start by asking council, do you want Darren just to present to you, or do you have specific questions that you would like to ask him? Okay, Councilwoman Levi, yes. Okay, go for it.
I was looking at the appraised value versus what we're paying for it. Do we have a really great negotiator, or especially in the market today,
Yeah.
why is it that we're paying significantly less?
Yeah, so, what we considered, the appraisal was $455,000. We did recognize that it has a septic tank, and so we asked for $15,000 off of this for the septic tank, and then another $25,000 for miscellaneous repairs. And so that went to the city council, and that went to the school board, and they accepted that.
So I think, yes, go ahead.
Darren, is this the one where there had been discussion about potentially trading, right?
Right, and so just to backtrack a little bit, in June, we had interest in this particular piece of property. You may have remembered that we suggested selling Mary Ellen's Meadow Park, get that money for Mary Ellen's Meadow Park, and then purchasing this particular piece of property. It wasn't favorable to the city council. They did not want to, voted against that sale. But during that discussion, we were prompted to look at impact fees and adjusting our impact fees to make this work. We didn't increase impact fees. What we did is we took this to the impact fee committee, and they reduced it from the swimming pool over to this particular piece of property. And what that'll do is the swimming pool will be built just a little further down the road than previously anticipated. But no extra impact fees were approved. And then in November, Patrick Sullivan, he came to the city council, and it wasn't a motion or a vote, but updated you in November about the moves of the impact fees.
Darren, thank you. Are there any other questions about this particular project? And Councilman Haverfield?
Well, thank you for providing in the report that Phase 1 environmental site assessment had been done. So that was a question that I had, if the soils were good, if it had to be remediation. So it doesn't sound like there is much other than a septic tank or drain
Yeah.
field potentially.
And there was a little bit of oil spill, but the school district cleaned that up, and it was checked by our environmental specialists to make sure that it was in compliance and
Okay.
cleaned up.
So my only other question then is the use of the buildings on site. Is that going to be for lawn care equipment for the Parks and Rec Department?
So historically, the school district has used it for their equipment for maintenance of landscaping, and then a warehouse for storage. And so we anticipate that we would use the small building for landscape maintenance, put our mowers there that are on this side of town. And then the other building, it's a little the structure is unique. It's a unique structure. But certainly, we're going to use that for some storage. Some of the things that we have at the Green Barn that we'd like to keep a little bit drier, sports equipment, things like that, we'll store in that particular spot. And then we'll also put together a group, look at our space needs, and kind of put together a medium, long-range plan of what we'll use that other building for.
So it's not the intent to remove either of the two buildings then?
It's not the intent.
So does that free up space in and around the rec center that's currently being used for the same storage?
No, the Green Barn, it's used for the recreation department, so all the stuff that are outside of the rec center, it's used for stuff outside of the rec center. The baseball equipment and that. And again, this piece of property too is we anticipate that we might be able to get some grants through the TAP program and build a trailhead. That is what it's been used for. There's a lot of cars that park at that location right now. And that was another one of our concerns, is that the school district did not have any issue with cars parking there, getting out, walking on walking the pathway. But it was one of our concerns, if it went to a private entity there, that parking would go away. So I guess we have multiple uses for this piece of property and think it'll work out really well.
Mayor, just as a follow-up, earlier this year, or maybe at the end of last year, we talked with folks that had the archery out the wastewater treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
Are either of these buildings large enough to be utilized for something like that? Would it be out of the norm to even consider it?
We've kind of looked at it a little bit. I don't know if the setup would work for, I don't think the size would work for that, but we can certainly continue to as we make plans, we can certainly look at that if it's an option.
Thank you.
I think I'd like to say one of the wonderful benefits of this piece of property is the last thing that Darren was talking about, and that has to do with our green belt, the Wilson Creek pathway that goes through there. Right now, there's a really ugly fence there, and it is not very attractive, and that is a trailhead opportunity. There aren't places to come and park and use that trailhead or that pathway, and so this is going to be a wonderful opportunity to create and beautify that. There's a beautiful grassy area that with trees that people could park their bikes and set at a picnic table and get on the trail. We look forward to cleaning it up and really making it an attractive environment instead of what it is today.
Yeah, I think we, our vision is to have, public bathroom, small public bathroom there, somewhere around that location. So as people are walking the trail, I think that'll be a nice place for it.
Mayor and Darren, possibility of painting the outside of those structures too?
I think, yeah.
Okay. I mean,
I
we can
think
maybe
that-
have a council painting party.
Yeah. We'll try to. They've done a lot of cleanup. They're pretty much out of that building. They've relocated, and so they've done a lot of cleanup. But it is our thoughts to put together some kind of small plan for the landscaping and spruce it up and make it look a lot nicer.
Maybe a wonderful mural or something even, who knows?
Mayor, just as one last question. The money for this coming out of impact fees, sitting on the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, I don't recall this item as being in the forefront. Is this displacing something else? The money that's being used for this, was there already money set aside for this location and this purchase?
Yeah. Councilman Haverfield, there was money in the impact fees set aside for a swimming pool that would be built at Brant Park. It was fairly far out. It was in one of the later phases. And so what we did with that is understanding that we felt like we were going to be several years out still from being able to build a swimming pool there, we lowered the amount that's going in for the swimming pool and then itemized out on the impact fee plan money to purchase this property.
So the money's already been raised? Is it available at this point, or are we still banking on growth?
No, so the money is in the money is available. We have brought in this amount of money to cover this in our impact fee fund balance. I do believe that the amendment for the budget amendment will be coming soon, and this will be included in the amendment. So I guess as you vote for this, and we've done that in the past, is that we've turned this into for an amendment, and so when that amendment comes, it'll be placed on here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any further questions? So what is the will of the council?
I'll go ahead and make it one more motion tonight, and that'll be to approve the purchase and sale agreement for the Nampa, with the Nampa School District for the property at 920 Lake Low Avenue, Nampa, Idaho.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Thank you, Darren. Item 5.5 is the FY22 budget factor calculation for the Nampa Fire District. And Kirk Carpenter, where did you go? Oh, bummer, just walked out. I tell you what, let's change the order real quickly. And since I see Brad sitting back there, if you don't mind, Brad, are you ready? Let's skip over to action item 5.8. Since Kirk just stepped out and I don't know where he went, but that's great timing. He was like, just looked up and he's gone. Oh, there you go. It's good timing, Kirk. We'll come back to you. Okay. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so this action item is to authorize the Nampa Police Department to apply for an ITD grant in the amount of $135,220. Is that why, that's one of the reasons why you're here tonight?
It is.
Yes. So are there questions for Brad, or would you like him just?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Brad.
We just needed to make sure you stayed awake and you got your exercise. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
I did. And
So it was Haverfield and Bauer.
Let's give it to Bell.
Thank you. They were fast. Yeah.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
yes.
Okay, now we'll go back to 5.5. That was classic, Kirk. I looked up and you were gone. Okay, so this is action item 5.5, and this is the FY22 budget factor calculation for the Nampa Fire Protection District.
It is just according to the mayor and council, according to the agreement the city has with the fire district. It's that time of year where we bring forward the budgeted calculated figure for next year's budget. It will be for the first quarter that we're still under the city for the 21-22 budget year. So this is really just us sending it to you and acknowledging receipt, and then Doug will have the opportunity to look it over and make sure that there were no errors. We do use the same numbers that are always used at the state for population and values, and then you have our call numbers that are in there as well.
Are there any questions?
No, that's completely acceptable. Make the motion to adopt the budget calculation as presented to us this evening.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you, Chief Carpenter. I forget to use our official titles, and I do apologize for that. Thank you. Item 5.6 on the agenda is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign 2 agreements with Osprey Estate Subdivision. The first agreement is for hookup of Osprey Estate Subdivision to the City of Nampa Domestic Water System, and the agreement to be annexed into the City of Nampa between the developer and the city. The second one is a development agreement between the developer, Highway District 1, and the city. Both have been reviewed and approved by legal. Do these need to be done in 2 separate motions, or can they be, do it one? Okay. Are there any questions? Would we like Daniel Badger to come forward?
It's not necessary. Mayor, I'll make the motion to authorize you to sign both of the agreements as presented in our packet.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Mucci,
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Item 5.7 on the agenda is to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign a task order for professional services between the city of Nampa and JUB for zones G and A sewer rehab in the amount of $193,609. Time and materials not to exceed, and this has been approved in the FY21 budget. Is there a motion, or would we like Daniel to come? Are we waiting for each other?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Hello? Who do we have there? That's kind of what I thought. Yeah. Okay, so back to roll call.
Mucci,
Yes.
Levi?
Hello, it's Joel.
Bauer,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
I knew that wasn't God, so.
That was great. You know, as I looked at this task order, one of the things that I so appreciate is that we have a citizen, Glenn Rimby, and I don't know if Glenn, if you're listening, but I just want to say happy birthday because I just noticed it was Glenn's birthday today. It popped up on Facebook. And Glenn is constantly looking at our contracts on our behalf, and he has partnered with us and our staff to make sure that we're just on top of it. And he's been alongside since I took office in our assessments of departments and a number of other things. And so it's another individual that has really worked on behalf of the city, and I appreciate it greatly. So happy birthday, Glenn. Okay, we just did 5.8 a minute ago, and now we're ready for 5.9. And this is to authorize the mayor to sign a master facility lease agreement with Crown Castle Fiber. And this has been reviewed and approved by legal. And I don't know if Andrew's on or if there's any questions. Are there any questions on this particular item? Nope.
I used mine up. Your turn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Mucci,
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
So 5.10 is the first reading of ordinance for the creation of the voluntary sidewalk LID 170. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance establishing and creating local improvement district 170 for the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, for the purpose of constructing improvements to the city sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, drive approaches, curbs, gutters, and other related street improvements in the district, providing the kind of character of the proposed improvements, providing that said district shall be considered a modified district pursuant to section 50-1705 Idaho Code, describing the boundaries of said district and the property therein to be benefited by the improvements to be made, providing for the total estimate cost and expenses of the improvements to be levied and assessed against the said lots and lands to be benefited by the improvements, providing for the issuance of bonds in the payment of the cost and expenses of said improvements assessed against the lots and lands, providing for the appointment of the city engineer to prepare the necessary plans and specifications for the improvements hereby ordered, and the preparation and filing of an assessment roll and a local improvement district report pursuant to the provisions of section 50-1712 Idaho Code, providing a procedure for the filing, certifications, notice of hearing, and confirmation of said assessment roll, and for the notice of and payment of assessment installations, and confirm creating certain funds and dockets, providing severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. That was long. Okay.
My
Is there
birthday
a motion?
boy. Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Mucci,
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
And item 511 is an action item. This is to request council's authorization to proceed with the bid process for LID 170.
So moved.
Okay. I'll
Second.
make the motion to approve this. Oh, you did?
I seconded it too.
Sorry.
I'm not sure who you recorded, but you've got it, okay. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi? Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes. It's an unusual night to get through new business with 1 minute maybe to spare before our public hearings. So good job. That's pretty amazing. Okay. So we have a moment to breathe before we step into public hearings. And our first public hearing, Rodney, is this one going to be yours? Okay. So, but we will start with the applicant. So we are moving into public hearings, and action item 6.1 is the annexation and zoning to light industrial at 245 North Happy Valley Road and 4513 Happy Valley, lots P, Q, and Z for the Homeacres number 2 subdivision. This is 4.45 acres in, for Peterson Holdings, and this is for industrial or light industrial. Is our applicant here this evening? It's online, okay. So his name is Joel, so that's the person.
Hello, hello, this is Joel Peterson. Can you hear me?
Yes, Joel, thank you for joining us this evening. As you start, can you go ahead? It's Joel Peterson. Can you give us your address?
Yes, it's P.O. Box 1682, Spanish Fork, Utah 84660.
Okay, so as the applicant, you have the opportunity to share with us about what you're wanting to accomplish and with this property.
Okay, well, basically, we were trying to, we were hoping to annex the property 245 Happy Valley and 4513 Airport Road, which is the 3 lots that you had mentioned in your opening. Our plans are to annex into the city, divide it into 2.25 acre lots and build 2 light industrial buildings for flex space of metal and office space.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Not at this time. If anybody has any questions, I can answer.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? Mr. Peterson, thank you. This is going to be a public hearing. Following this, we'll have a staff report, then we'll open up the public hearing. We will have the opportunity to come back to you at the conclusion of the public hearing and to have you answer any additional questions we might have. So just hang tight and we'll be back with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you,
Mayor and
Rodney.
Council, Director Rodney Ashby, City of Nampa Planning and Zoning. The requested action before you is annexation and zoning to IL at the southwest corner of Happy Valley and Airport Road. Again, you have the ability to approve or deny this application before you. And the applicant stated, Mark, I'm not getting the display view on here for some reason. Doesn't seem to be. I think I just shared the PowerPoint. Should I share the desktop? Okay, let me try that. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So you can see the property here. There's 2 properties there with a total of 4.45 acres. And the applicant stated that it's for future development of light industrial buildings, or I've heard them say that they would be a couple of shell buildings. The Nampa Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend to City Council approval of the project, subject to the proposed conditions after a public hearing that was held on January 26, 2021. I'm not going to go through these conditions of approval, but they're in your packet. So the comprehensive plan in the area is for industrial with an overlay for the airport. And the overlay is just intended to be, to remind us of what types of things we want to see around the airport. Really, the airport plan kind of identifies some land uses, but they primarily focus on industrial land uses because of the desire to have less people living in those areas, that there could be a concern. So that's the comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning is for IL, light industrial, and as you can see there, IL is just to the west of these two properties. The existing zoning is out in the county, is county rural residential. A little closer view there, there are some existing buildings that would be removed. So surrounding land uses, mostly county rural residential lots in the area. To the east is county rural residential and Happy Valley though, and to the west is a vacant lot zoned IL or light industrial. And if I just go back a slide, a couple of slides, you can see the MAF property to the bottom left of this picture. So public utilities, city sewer and pressure irrigation systems are not immediately available to the site. Utilities are presently located in the locations listed in your staff report and on the screen. And there's a picture of those. Again, water is available, but irrigation and sewer are not immediately available. So no response was received from city police or fire departments on this annexation, but the following statement was provided in August of 2020 for projected growth for the first quarter of the year. In order to adequately provide police services to the community, there needs to be 160 officers at a ratio of 1.5 officers per 1,000 people. Therefore, there is currently a shortfall of 41 officers. Again, this is not adding residential, but it is adding an industrial use. Transportation access is taken from both Airport Road, which is a minor arterial with a speed limit of 35 miles per hour, and North Happy Valley, which is also a minor arterial with a speed limit of 35 miles per hour. Right-of-way dedication will be required at the time of the development to ensure 50 feet from center line on both roadways. The correspondence is in your packet, but I just wanted to highlight one that was maybe a little different than we normally would see. Engineering's comment was dedication of 25 feet of right-of-way along Airport Road and North Happy Valley Road, and then a 25-foot chamfer at the intersection. These are the applicable regulations and conclusions of law that are required to be adopted as part of your approval if you choose to approve annexation. So I just bolded those sections of each of these bullet points that are critical. It must be contiguous with the city limits. It must be reasonably assumed to be available for the orderly development of the city. For instance, in this situation, you wouldn't want it clear out without any possibility of providing utilities in the near future. It's part of the plan to grow into this area. That's kind of what that one is focused on. It should be consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, future land use map. And the last one there is, it's a pretty standard application from somebody, the property owner or their representative, to come into the city, and they agree to that. So, and that would comply with Category A annexation and State Code and our City Code Title 10, Chapter 2. So these are some potential conclusions of law. They're in your packet. And this is just staff looking at it and saying, it seems to comply with the comprehensive plan, future land use map. It's contiguous to existing zoning, existing city limits and so forth. And you would, essentially, if you were to approve this, you could adopt those as your conclusions of law. I did include in your packet the permitted and conditional uses for the IL zone, and would be happy to go over those if you have any questions, as well as permitted signs in the IL zone. So these are potential conditions of approval. Again, I'm not going to go through these. These are in your staff report. Pretty standard conditions for the most part. Aerial view. And then, as I've stated before, there are two ways we could look at this. There's a lot of flexibility for annexations for the city council to deny or approve it. And so I've placed before you two potential motions. And if you were to adopt, or if you were to deny the annexation and zoning, I would propose that you find one of the conclusions of law that are not compliant with this property, and then describe why, and that would be your findings. So I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Rodney, I have two questions. One about sewer. So you said water is available, sewer is not available at this time. Are they looking at bringing sewer to this location to service this, or what's the plan on sewer at this time?
Mayor, I guess I'd turn to the applicant again for their ideas there, but sewer would have to come from a fairly good distance away, and if they were to provide it, they'd need to bring it over to that property.
So we have sewer at the airport, right? That is the distance.
Yeah, so 350 feet west in Airport Road, right around that intersection there, is where the closest is. And you, as you see, engineering recommends an additional water service tap for irrigation with dedicated landscape meter, but that's related to irrigation. Sorry, I jumped on the wrong bullet point there. City sewer master plan includes future extension of sewer main line east on Airport Road that would service this property in the future.
And then is the developer aware of the dedication of the 20 feet of right of way? Has that been discussed with them?
Yeah, that was a condition that we had as part of planning and zoning, and so they were made aware at that time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Rodney? Yes, Councilman Havertz.
Rodney, due to the proximity to the airport, I didn't see anything in the conditions of approval that spoke to FAA restrictions or development restrictions or guidelines. Does this fall within the flyover protection zone? I know it isn't in the runway protection zone, but would FAA need to be involved with this as far as for the type of buildings that are built?
I don't believe so. I think it falls right outside of it, but as we go through the development process for building permits, we will look at those specifics about height. Essentially, that runway protection zone, as you know, is kind of a banana boat shape and goes up as it moves away from the airport runway. So I don't anticipate any concerns in this location. It's a pretty good distance away.
The only thing I would think of would be the reflective surfaces of the roof, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all those conditions must be followed as part of the building permit process.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions this time? Yes.
Rodney, I neglected to ask the applicant what their intended use would be for this, because as I'm looking, looking through the allowed uses in the IL zone, I'm just kind of wondering, to segue off what the mayor was saying when she was asking about sewer, I'm thinking a car wash. But water's got to go somewhere, so where is that going to go, and what does that do to traffic depending what they're going to use?
Yeah.
If you put something of that magnitude on that corner, what's going to happen there? So I guess kind of backing up a little bit, what does the airport do for the storage of their fuel? Because I noticed that petroleum storage is also an allowable use.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the answer to that. Is there somebody in engineering?
So, Rodney, can I answer that question real quick?
It's not his. You know what, Joel or Mr. Peterson, if you could do me a favor and we'll make note of the questions and you can make some note of these questions, and following the public hearing, we'll have you come back and answer these questions for us. So, and your first
Okay.
question that we'll come back to is the intended use of the facilities after the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, and so we have
Okay.
Jeff Barnes. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing.
Yeah, Counselor, you asked about the storage of fuel at the airport, and there's a underground storage tank for the fuel at the airport currently.
Jeff, thank you. Are there any other
Yeah.
questions? Councilman Haverfield?
Jeff, while you're still standing up, to answer the mayor's question as far as about the sewer, I know that to service those new airport hangars, there was a depth issue as far as at end of town. Is Airport Road, how deep is the sewer in Airport?
Maybe Daniel can help me. We can, Counselor, we can pick up sewer to that new area to the east.
It's deep enough that you don't have to worry about gravity?
Yeah.
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, bear with me for just a moment as I pull the actual lines up. So the sewer to the west of the property at 44th is approximately 8 feet deep. So has the depth. I would not have any concern with being able to service this property from that line. I do know there is rock there that they will likely have to blast or chip to be able to lay that line, but it does appear to have adequate depth.
So as I read the report, sewer is available 350 feet away. Is it, and maybe the applicant can speak to this, if it's their intent to extend the sewer to the property for a hookup, or if they plan on trying to put something on the surface that, especially with the depth of, like you say, the lava that's probably out there at a shallow level, it would really make a lot of sense if they could connect into the sewer and not have to deal with that.
I would agree with that assessment, Councilman Haverfield.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Rodney? Okay. We may have you back, Rodney, as you know. So this is a public hearing, and at this time, we don't have anyone signed up to testify in favor of or in opposition to. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this hearing? Yes. As you come forward, go ahead and state your name and your address.
Yes, my name is Brandy Forrest, and I live at 4600 Oak Street, which shares a back property line with the property at 245 North Happy Valley Road. And thank you, Councilwoman Levi, for asking the question of what the property will be used for. I myself am very curious and concerned about what it will be used for. When I moved into the property, it was a residential neighborhood. The two homes that were on those two properties have been removed and torn down. So they are making lots of progress on the property already. And Happy Valley is already a very busy road. As you may know, Happy Valley and East Victory are currently under construction because we are getting a roundabout down there. So I am concerned about the additional traffic that will be generated by light industrial at that intersection, as well as what's going to be there and how that's going to affect the backdrop of my property and my resale value and all those wonderful things.
Mayor, just a question, how close is your home or whatever to the, when you say the backdrop, to where this property begins?
Can you kind of point, I see
Yes.
a cursor on there, so.
That's, oh, you just had it. So you see the house, that's my house right there.
Okay.
Yep, the cursor is on my house.
So then your property runs to the green, to the turquoise or whatever.
Yes, it is a long, narrow property.
Okay, so your house itself is, say how many feet away? Any idea? 50 yards or?
I believe the whole property is, the lot is 3/4 of an acre. So I believe that the whole lot is 100 feet or 100
Okay.
yards. So it's probably about, I don't know.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I can, by
So-
the site, you are quite a distance from the property.
Right. They're not going to be like sitting on my lap or anything. And we did, there was already a gentleman that came out and did some survey work. So,
Thanks.
Any other questions, Mayor? Yes.
Ms. Forrest, a couple questions, if I might, please. The property on either side of you, those are both residential,
yes, they are.
and are you in the county?
Yes, we are.
And are they as well?
Yes.
And when you said that the property behind you, they've already removed the two homes?
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from Ms. Forrest? Thank you.
Would it be possible for me to have more questions after Mr. Peterson addresses Councilwoman Levi's concerns?
You know, it actually is not. So you might very quickly, if you have additional questions, now would be the time to get them out, and I apologize, but it's our process.
Understood. Thank you. Some of my questions are, will I be able to address the council again or attend the building permit meeting?
Well, Rodney, the answer is no on that. Okay.
Okay. And another question that I have for Mr. Peterson is, I know that a lot of times when properties, when there's building, that they're required to put in sidewalks. And so I'm wondering if putting in sidewalks is part of the agreement with being annexed into the city and building there, especially as a little bit further north on Happy Valley, there are 4 properties that are also up for a public hearing because they're right next to those apartments on the west side of Happy Valley. And I haven't delved deeply into it, but it does appear that they might have similar desires to tear those houses down and to bring the development, whether it's apartments, I don't know what they're hoping to do with that. But having children, if they are going to develop it, I think that it's important that we add sidewalks to this area. I know that right over there where the sewer hookup is a large trailer court. And so those kids are also out and about and walking around town. Many of them walk down to the high school on Columbia High School. And so I believe that adding sidewalks would be an important part of any development that happens along Happy Valley. And I noticed that Happy Valley is listed as a minor artillery. I didn't say that right, but
That's okay.
but like I mentioned earlier, it is getting busier and busier and busier. So that is certainly something to keep in mind as you make your decision. So I don't
Thank
have
you.
anything else.
Good questions. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you. Okay, was there anyone else that had intended to speak tonight that did not get signed up? Okay, seeing none, this is an opportunity for our applicant to come back. And I think, Mr. Peterson, I think you had some questions that maybe you could address as you come back?
No questions, just I think I was trying to answer some questions that the council had. And they actually directly relate to Ms. Forrest's comments and questions. We do not intend to build a gas station or a car wash as originally planned. We had scrapped that plan a while back, but hadn't got that over to the city. Ms. Forrest, what we had planned to build on the property currently is we have these properties are going inside of our LLC, which are going to a drywall company and a paint company. They plan to occupy the two buildings that we are proposing, which are approximately 13 to 15,000 square foot metal buildings with office space. One property. Currently, it shows 3 lots, but we'll be combining and then dividing them into larger lots. We are aware of the 50-foot goal, the 25 and 25 for the corner there. We have agreed to that. I'm assuming to answer Ms. Forrest's question, I'm assuming that the city will require sidewalk, curb, and gutter. I'm not sure what exactly that will be, but we plan to follow any guidelines that the city requires of us. We do plan to put the buildings as close to Happy Valley and Airport as possible as to not invade the space of the neighbors in the county area. But no, we are not doing the car wash. We're not doing a gas station, so the traffic won't be as bad as originally planned. With that, I can answer any other questions that you might have.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Peterson. Will those have retail? Will they be retail shops in that front office space, or is it purely just storage for the paint and drywall with work office in the front?
Just shop space / storage for with office for the businesses. There won't be any proposed retail currently in our plans, no. Just to run the two businesses off those property locations.
So you don't anticipate a lot of traffic?
There'll be traffic coming in and out in the mornings and the afternoons as employees come and go, but no, we're not a retail business. Everything that we do is home building related, so nothing nights, evenings, weekends, that kind of thing, mostly, 8 to 5 kind of stuff.
Do you have an idea of the number of employees?
Most employees do not. In the Peterson Painting Company, I know I'm actually associated with, most of the employees don't come to the shop. Daytime employees that will be staying at the facility, probably 15 to 25. The drywall company, I believe, is about half our size currently, Performance Drywall, and I believe he probably has only 10 full-time employees that will be on the property daily. Most Peterson Painting and Performance Drywall has subcontractors, so employees should not be an issue.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions, Councilman Haverfield?
No, I would try to remember what my questions were.
Sewer has not been answered, has it?
What's that?
Councilman? Sewer,
Uh,
if you just plan on running the.
Yeah, that was a good question that I guess my question though was the paint storage. Do you plan on having a paint booth within the facilities there? Are you going to be doing any of that type of work on site? Or is it only painting away from the
No.
site?
The paint company uses 99.5% latex products. A paint booth would require, say, lacquer, anything oil-based, and that's just, everything nowadays is low VOC, so a paint booth would not be required. We don't paint cars or anything like that, just kind of a door here and a door there kind of thing. Going back to the sewer, if the city is going to require us to bring the sewer over, we'd be happy to do that. We assumed that in our calculations, we did see that there is 2 areas to bring in the sewer, one from that trailer court and the other 350 feet down the road. Whichever one would work out best for the residents and the city is which group we plan to take.
Okay.
Also, the irrigation question. Irrigation, I think, is a little bit tougher. We had planned to install a landscape meter on both properties until irrigation has made its way down the road. We're assuming that when the apartments, if they come to pass across the street, that we could hook on when they hook on the pressurized irrigation. But of course, we will follow any of the guidelines and the requirements that the city asks us to do. We try to be a good partner in the community.
Thank you. That answers the question, because my follow-up question, if you were planning on a spray booth, was the type of paints that you'd be storing on site that could be explosive in nature. So it's good to know that you're more latex-based. What about yard storage? Do you have any yard storage plans as far as for vehicles, trailers, anything that would need to be shielded from view?
No, just basic vans and trucks. Most of our stuff goes inside the facility. There will be a few vehicles that'll be parked out overnight. But like I said, most of the stuff gets subcontracted out, so there won't be that many vehicles that aren't coming and going without the 8 to 5 hours that I talked about. We don't have any storage bins or anything like that. It's just basic vehicles.
Thank you. Mayor, I just have one follow-up question for Daniel when we're to that point.
Are there any additional questions for, yes, Councilman
Mayor
Rodriguez?
Kling, thank you. Mr. Peterson, you might have covered this, and Ms. Forrest didn't ask you, but I'm going to ask you this. What about, do you have any kind of buffer with Ms. Forrest's property? A fence or whatever?
Buffer?
A fence or?
Fencing, we do plan to fence the property, yes.
Okay. Would it be any expense to Ms. Forrest?
No. We would 100% take care of any fencing that would be required. We try to, we don't want to do barbed wire and anything that looks like a compound or anything, but we do try to do fencing to provide a little bit of security for the facility, but, not make it look like a jail or anything like that. And if Ms. Forrest has any input on that, with basic, fencing input, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, so let's, Councilman Haverfield, I think you had a question for.
Daniel, if you can come back up. Basically, on behalf of the developer, I was just wondering, for the sewer extension to the property to and through, would there be a reimbursement incentive for him to do that for future hookups?
That is a option if he desires to request that. That would go through the process and come back to council for approval of the agreement if he was interested in that.
Okay, I would just make sure that the applicant is aware of that incentive option moving forward with this project.
Thank you. Okay, I think at this time our public hearing is closed. I would stand for a motion, though, to officially, excuse me, Councilwoman.
I was just wanting to ask Rodney a question, but if I can still
It's
ask
okay,
him
we'll
if
go
you.
ahead and ask. That's okay, we'll wait and you can ask him.
So, a few questions, if I might. As I'm reading through, the 4 reasons for them to be able to, I'm sorry.
it's up on the screen as well, the
Are you looking
conclusions
at
of law.
conclusions of law? No?
So as I'm looking at the applicable regulations, is the MAF property the one that would be contiguous property would be connected to?
Let me go back here. So there's actually a undeveloped property just to the immediate west, but the MAF property it is also contiguous. That's that residential development they have for the, I think it's for the pilots out there. So it would be contiguous right at that corner right here. And then this is an undeveloped land right here as well. But it is zoned. As you can see, the gray is the light industrial zoning annexed into the city.
So is that gray piece aside from MAF, is that already in the city?
Right here?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And then when it comes to the fencing and the sewer, I didn't see as far as the fencing written in the conditions of approval. And I would feel better knowing that that was something that was a condition of approval for our neighbors' sake.
Mayor and Councilwoman Levi, that's definitely a condition you can definitely place in the motion to include.
And then as far as the sewer, my understanding is anytime someone's wanting to be annexed into the city, that we can get them to bring do sewer and water hookups that we should. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Daniel, you want to speak to that again?
Mayor, Councilman Levi, that would be a accurate statement that the densities that the sewer promotes are part of the reason that the city exists and part of the reason we have the sewer system that we do. And so connection to those with development is appropriate.
Okay, and the reason for my confusion, so people don't think that I totally lost it here, was I was reading under the conditions of approval on number 4, that then if I did not misunderstand the developer, he said that if they needed to hook up, they would. So I'm kind of confused if they understood they should hook up or if they see that as an option.
There are, Mayor, Councilman Levi, there are standards that are in the state plumbing code, which the city has adopted, that determines when a property is required to connect. Typically, things of commercial nature, their goal is not to have that long-term maintenance on a septic system. And so it's my experience that commercial buildings rarely, if they have the opportunity to connect, would not want to do that. Is that? So it's my experience that a commercial building, if they have the opportunity to connect to sewer, I have not experienced where they would not have done that if they had the opportunity.
So you do understand my confusion over what was said in reading this. Okay. So according to this, they will be connecting to the sewer.
Councilwoman Levi,
This is where I'm
these are potential conditions, not if, and that's what I just realized, that list up there is strictly for potential. So we would need to put those conditions of approval on with our motion. And those are good questions and important questions. So I think the information that I've heard has been around fencing, sidewalk, and sewer. So it would be at the will of the council which conditions of approval they would put in with the motion. Is that correct, Rodney? Right, at this point, it's up to the council to choose those conditions.
I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Yes.
Follow up for Rodney, since you're standing there too. The property to the south, Ms. Forrest property, is it in the city limits?
It is not.
It's not. So the sensitivity to residential in a commercial development, normally there would be a landscape buffer provided. Is this required as a part of our ordinance that a landscape buffer would be required, or do we have to add that if we choose to add, want it?
Great question, Mayor and Councilman Haverfield. That is not required by our code because they are not in the city. So yeah, that could be a condition that you placed on this.
So normally, an industrial abutting residential would provide what width?
I thought you might ask that. So, when side or rear property lines of properly zoned IL abut property residential zoned interior yard setbacks of not less than 30 feet wide deep shall be required opposite the abutting residential district on the industrial property. So there's a 30-foot buffer. That doesn't necessarily mean landscape, though. The landscaping is a 10-foot width.
10-foot width?
Mhm.
And the fence can be anywhere within that 10 feet?
That's
Can either
correct.
be on the property line or in 10 feet?
That's correct.
So these conditions of approval that were provided, were they provided by the P and Z Commission? Or,
That's correct. Mhm.
and they didn't bring that up then at that time?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mayor? Thank you. Oh, Rodney, so going back to the landscape buffer, the developer had made mention that at this time that they would not be able to get irrigation unless the project across the way went in and they were able to hook up to the irrigation.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, would we be happy with there not being a landscape buffer there until they were able to bring irrigation in?
So it depends on what you're describing, which area you're trying to landscape. So if it's between these residential properties and this property, that would be something that you'd have to direct them to do since it's out in the county, not in the city. If you're talking about over near the roadway and the landscape buffer there that would be necessary, or the setback away from the road, so we allow them to do dry landscaping, so rocks of some kind, and so we don't require that it be irrigated if there's not irrigation available to the site.
Thank you, Rodney. I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
The birthday boy keeps pointing this direction. I don't know why.
This is yours. You were Councilwoman Levi's.
Mayor Kling, I think this is reasonable. It's an enclave parcel. It fits within our desire to provide light industrial, development and the jobs that it creates. So I would make a motion to approve the annexation and zoning to IL as proposed. The only thing that I would add is that a 10-foot landscape buffer, albeit dry versus organic, is provided by the developer between his property and the residential development. And I think that's all we had.
Sidewalk
Oh,
and sewer?
yeah.
And question about fencing.
The fencing should be 6 foot, side obscuring around the perimeter. I'll leave that up to planning and zoning to define. Item 1 of our suggested approval items included frontage improvements with engineering division, sidewalk drainage, turn lanes if warranted. That information is provided to us, so I would make my motion to include that. And it's kind of a long roundabout motion, but I think I've said everything.
Did you get sewer?
Oh, and yes, that sewer would be extended. And again, item 4 specifically stated that on-site wells and septic systems shall be abandoned. So they would have to provide some means of the effluent being captured and put into the system. But I would also make sure that staff would let the developer know that there is a latecomer incentive program for sewer extensions that he could apply for, that other developers or other potential developers, as they hook onto it, could provide some revenue back for his investment.
Yes,
Second the motion.
it's been moved and seconded, and thank goodness for recordings.
So Mayor, clarification, so all other potential conditions of approval were also
That's correct.
covered in your motion?
All conditions, including the added ones that I stated.
Okay.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez? Yes. Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay. I think we've got it. Mr. Peterson, thank you for joining us this evening. And Ms. Forrest.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you for the entire team that helped us through this. We're looking forward to the project.
Well, we look forward to your development coming in, so thank you. I will say as we close, this falls within the guidelines that Councilman Haverfield talked about earlier. When it's an enclave area, less than 5 acres, light industrial, which does not have a huge burden on our first responders. And so that's why this particular project has moved forward, because we do want to be mindful of what he shared earlier in the evening. With that, let's move to our second public hearing, and this is action item 6.2. This is a zoning map amendment from suburban residential to two-family duplex residential for future development on 1110 South Elder Street. This is an amended plat for the Kurtz addition. Is the applicant here with us this evening? Hi, come on up and give us your name and address, and thank you for telling us what you're hoping to accomplish.
My name is David Nugent. Address is 16520 Mulberry Lane. Want to thank the council and the mayor. It's a piece of property that's surrounded by fourplexes and duplexes. The lot lines were adjusted, and this little piece was a vacated easement that just never got amended into the rest of the zoning. So considering you can't use the piece of property and it's contiguous, I'd appreciate if you would approve my zoning amendment.
Wonderful.
That's about it.
Thank you. Well, we'll listen to staff report, and then as you know, we may have you come back. Thank you. Parker, thank you for providing a quick report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The action requested from you tonight is approval or denial of a zoning map amendment from RA to RD for future development, 1110 South Elder Street for David Nugent. The property is located inside city limits and is zoned RA. The actual lot is 0.35 acres, with the RA portion of that lot being 0.18 acres. It is surrounded by RD with townhomes to the north, fourplexes to the east, and a duplex to the south with RS6 to the west, and that is a single-family home on that RS6 lot. The future land use map designates it as medium-density residential and is surrounded by that designation. Access to the lot is off of South Elder Street, and all utilities are currently available. As the applicant mentioned, the lot lines were recently adjusted. This is what was recorded for the lot and access easement. The RA portion of the RA zone portion of the lot was previously a separate lot. This change makes it all one lot being split zoned. We received comments from engineering regarding future development of the site meeting city requirements. As code enforcement stated that the property has violations in regard to the weeds on the property, and I believe that the applicant has recently made an effort to address those issues. Building department requires that the future development development be subject to Title IV building regulations. So the RA portion of the lot has remained due to the property never being developed. With the property boundary adjustment, the parcel has become split zoned. Per City Code 1035, when a parcel is split zoned, such as this, we take the more restrictive zone and apply the regulations for that zone to the entire parcel. That would be the RA zone being the more restrictive zone, which would prevent development from occurring on this lot. The rezone application is just our way of cleaning up the parcel for future development. It is my understanding that the applicant has recently sold the property, but is here representing the new owner. Previously, he stated that he did not wish to develop, but the new owner will probably be developing the lot pending the rezone. If the City Council approves the rezone, the following conclusions are required by City Code and must be supported by findings. The amendment would be in harmony with the comprehensive plan. The amendment would provide a proposed use that would be reasonably compatible with the adjoining uses. The amendment would establish an area of zoning that is compatible with adjoining districts. The amendment would not create a spot zone not supported by the comprehensive plan. And the amendment would be in the interest of the public. Likewise, if you do not wish to deny the rezone, you must find that it does not meet one of these conclusions and support that decision with findings. If the council approves the rezone from RA to RD, the following conditions would be recommended, which are found in the staff report, and in addition to any conditions that you would like to add to that. This is a potential motion with conclusions of law that we reviewed. I will remind you that if you deny, that it would be supported by findings that you state, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
Parker, can you go back to the slide with the cross-access agreement shown on it? Okay. It appears those three lots, 1108, 1112, and whatever the third one is, are impacted. 1104 doesn't appear to be impacted. Is that cross-access agreement already in place?
I believe this is close to what was recorded. They changed some things when we came back with comments, when we reviewed the lot line adjustment to make the access easement larger, wider, but that is really the only difference between this one and what was recorded.
So, again, my question, has it been recorded?
It has.
It has. And for this to be developed, that road section that's being brought back in there with the turnaround, would that be required to be a paved surface?
Mayor and councilman, it would be required to be paved.
And approvals have already been granted then, it appears, to the other three lots that face onto Sharon's Way to the south. I guess that's south. So that was my main question, is just if there's joint approval and the cross-access agreement's been filed, so it's just back to what type of surface will be provided back there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Haverfield. Are there any additional questions? Okay. Parker, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, and at this time we have, other than the applicant, we don't have anyone signed up to testify in support or in opposition to. Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify? Seeing none, this would be an opportunity for the applicant to come back up and offer any closing remarks for the council to address you with any questions. Feel free to come up and, council, do council members have any questions for the applicant?
Mayor, I do. Yes. Thank you. I think we heard that you're representing the new owner.
Yeah, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Okay. And the new owner is completely amenable to any of the conditions on this
Yes.
property?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a letter with them. Do you need the letter? Do I need to file that here, or a permission slip from the owner?
Legal thoughts on that? And
Um,
Mr. Nugent, I do have another question for you, but go ahead.
Madam Mayor, if he's got it, you just as well put it in the record.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware of, and/or the new owner, are they agreeing to the paved surface? They understand that the
Oh, yeah,
surface, they
yeah.
know that? Okay.
Yeah, they know.
Perfect. I don't like surprises. It's always nice to know things in advance.
Yeah, it's
right?
pretty much all in the ordinances you have to do to,
Good, so you're aware. Okay, are there any other questions from council for applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
so much.
Submit that to the clerk, does it?
Yes, do you have it, do you need a copy made?
no, I don't need
You
a
don't,
copy.
okay, so let's leave it here with the clerk if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm
Thank
just
you.
doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
What is the will of council?
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve this zoning map amendment from RA to RD for future development at 1110 South Elder Street with the stated required conclusions of law and conditions of approval as stated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
So we have one more public hearing, council. Can we set through one more and then quick break after that? No? Okay. Okay, so our last public hearing is item 6.3 on the agenda. This is an action item for annexation and zoning to community business at 11043 Moss Lane. And this is also for a conditional use permit for vehicle repair and used vehicle dealership, which is a 0.42 acre portion of this. And this is for Dwayne Steele. Excuse me, is the applicant here? Good evening. Go ahead and state your name and address and tell us what you'd like us to know on this one.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Lee, and I live at 4057 North Valentine, Eagle Road, Eagle, Idaho. And we're going to bring the shop back to what it was 20 years ago, with a mechanic shop, repair shop, and body shop. But mostly it's just a body shop and storage for wrecked cars and stuff. So that's what we're going to do there.
Okay. And are there any questions for the applicant? Not,
Used cars,
Used cars, trucks.
classic or not classic?
No, it won't be classic, probably. We may have one once in a great moon, but it'll be mostly trucks.
Thank you. Trying to give you some business.
Councilman,
Wish I could
are
find
you- are
more
you
of
try-
them.
Are you trying to sell your classic car, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Need to have it tuned.
Councilwoman Levi.
Sir, it says that 3 of the properties around you are already zoned, like one's a Plaza Shopping Center and other 2 are automobile wrecking and storage. But then it does state that one of the properties is a residence.
Correct. The ones on the west is a road down it, and then there's a little bitty house here and a trailer house behind with some people in it. But the wrecking yard is over here next to Middleton Road, between Middleton Road and my building, and it goes all the way around, the whole thing. They're junk cars, or wrecked cars, older cars. And then there's just that 2 houses right next to me.
Have you received any testimony or opposition from that resident?
No,
Are they aware of it?
yes. The sign is right there at the fence. So, in fact, we tried to talk to them, but they wouldn't even return our calls, so. Yeah. Well, we're not sure really who owns it, but we tried.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I have just one, Mayor. So just for clarification, right there at Middleton Road and Moss, that's not your property?
No, no.
Okay.
It's, we're in about, probably about 75 feet in from Middleton Road.
Okay.
The old cars is belong to another guy.
Okay, because I was hoping you'd own that and get that out of there.
Can you imagine?
That would be great. Thank you.
Well, they call Pacific, and they'll spend a day or two and then get rid of it real
For
quick.
sure.
You know, but
Thank you.
If we have any other questions after the public hearing, we'll have you come back up. In
Okay,
fact,
thank
we
you.
will anyway.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, Doug. Thank you for providing a brief staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Doug Critchfield. So as you heard from the applicant, Mr. Lee, the request today is for annexation and zoning to BC, as well as a conditional use permit for a vehicle repair and used vehicle dealership. And the applicant has stated his purpose. A little bit of side information, as we were just talking about. So the previous designation on this property is county rural residential. The comprehensive plan land use setting is commercial over this property, and it is surrounded by commercial land use settings as well. The surrounding zoning to the north is to the Boulevard Plaza Shopping Center, community business. To the south is the automobile wrecking, that's county rural residential. To the east is community business and automobile wrecking storage. And then to the west is a county rural residential with the residents on it. In terms of the utilities on the site, there's 12-inch domestic water main in Moss Lane. Per the engineering department, the pressure irrigation main is located 1,750 feet to the west in Moss Lane, and that the engineering division has indicated that continued use of the existing irrigation water rights is acceptable. And they also recommend an additional water service tap for irrigation with a dedicated landscape meter. And then the sewer is located, the Stubbs main is located 320 feet to the west and the north side of 11090 Moss Lane. And the engineering division has indicated that the continued use of an existing septic system is acceptable on the site, and that any new development is required to submit a septic plan for approval to the Southwest District Health. Here's a picture of the utilities. The green circle is the irrigation, or the location of the sewer, and then the purple circle is the pressurized main, and the red square is the property. There are police and fire service incorporated areas surrounding the current location. The site is located on a residential street with commercial to the north and automobile wrecking yard to the immediate east and south. And the area is in transition from county residential to commercial. The access from the property is Moss Lane, and Moss Lane is classified as a collector road. This is a view of the site from the north looking south into the site. And this is a view of the site from the street view. There was an environmental assessment completed on this property in 2005. Phase 1 indicated that there were soil or potential for soil contaminants that existed on the site. The limited Phase 2 assessment was completed a few weeks later, and it was indicated, the findings were that there were no evidence of petroleum, waste oil, metals, or steam cleaning residue on the property, and that no additional investigation was required. The codes and regulations that would apply to this have to do as a procedural tool for conditional use permits, that when a rezone or annexation in this case is combined with a conditional use permit, that both of those go to the City Council for approval by recommendation of the Planning Commission. Title 10, Chapter 16, in regards to the community business zone, there are several conditions in here, generally oriented towards the service establishments and clusters and intersections of major thoroughfares. In this case, the major thoroughfare would be Caldwell Boulevard and Middleton Road at that intersection. Napa City Code Title 10, 3.2, Schedule of District Zone Land Use Controls indicated that used car dealership is permitted in the BC zone, but a car repair business requires a conditional use permit in the BC zone. Also in Title 10, in regards to annexation, it refers to that the site must be contiguous within city limits. This adjoins city limits along its north and east property lines, and it qualifies for annexation. In terms of the CUP, the council is charged with determining if the repair shop is compatible with the types of uses permitted in surrounding areas and for stipulating conditions if a CUP is approved. And in terms of the specific codes regarding this site, Moss Lane is collector road, and so a 20-foot setback would be required for any new construction on the site. Likewise, I have to make a correction. I was looking at this code thinking that residentially zoned properties had to do with county properties. It does not. It's only city zoned properties, so no setback is required in this regard. In terms of correspondence, we had some internally. We had general comments as was stated by the engineering division. Rob Willis indicated a need to be compliant with Title IV building regulations. And then a note from Brandy Walker from Lumen and CenturyLink indicating that if there were a conflict with their facilities, the developer would be required to submit plans for approval. So the question came up in the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the presence of hazardous materials, and that was indicated by the applicant that they did not exist, and it was after that meeting that the site assessment, the environmental assessments were provided to us, which concluded what was stated earlier. There is an existing diesel repair shop on the site, and the cars that once occupied the site have been removed. In terms of the findings and conclusions of law, they're stated in your staff report, and it largely has to do with the environmental assessment and the annexation and zoning, and then the conditional use permit, the standard conditions. The conditions approval are also stated in your staff report, and they're they're the generic conditions in terms of complying with city codes and policies. There is a requirement of a 20-foot right-of-way dedication to the city of Nampa, and that will be taken care of by the Nampa Engineering Division, and then the Lumen comments from CenturyLink. So the potential motions this evening, there are two motions. The first motion will be towards the annexation. This approval, there are three options really: to approve, deny, or to table to a date certain. The approval is stated here that the annexation and zoning to BC zoning district at 11043 Moss Lane for Dwayne Steve Lee with conditions as listed in the staff report, and any additional conditions that you may wish to add, and findings based on conclusion of law or denial with a statement and findings based on conclusion of law or decision to table or date certain. And as well as in the conditional use report, same process. So I'll take any questions.
I have a quick question, and
Yes.
that is, just to clarify, I believe I heard you just say that the current use in the property is a diesel repair. It is a repair shop. It's just in the county versus the city.
That's correct.
So the use of the property isn't going to change other than the used cars, which is approved already with that zoning designation.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for staff? Thank you, Doug.
Okay, thank you,
Appreciate it. So this is a public hearing, and do we have anyone signed up?
Bertley Wilson.
So thank you for sharing your name again and your address.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Bertley Wilson at 550 South Bighorn Drive, Boise, Idaho. And Dwayne Lee is the owner of the property, and I'm with a co-owner with Elite Commercial Services. I've previously been with Rush Truck Centers for the previous almost 15 years. Was a general manager there for the last 5 years, and me and a partner have recently gone out on our own to fill a niche opportunity. A lot of what we do, so diesel repair shop is very generic. We do commercial vehicle modification and upfitting, and As far as a used car lot, it will not be a typical used car lot. We won't carry much for inventory. We're looking for the ability to meet customers' needs by finding equipment and selling it to them. And that's why we're seeking the dealership opportunity. I've been, as a general manager of Rush, had 50 employees, state-of-the-art facility, multi-million-dollar facility, economically or environmentally aware of, things that for the community and for business and for employees is sustainable and cutting edge. This is a small facility. It needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be able to present to our customers what we would expect them to see, from the onset of what we would produce for them in quality. And so we would develop the facility to look the part. So in that, we've already cleaned up several tons of debris that have been on site. There's a lot of work in the surrounding areas that needs to be done. There's a lot of new business that have moved into the areas that have done a very good job. The access to our property would not be at Middleton and the Boulevard. It takes place a little further west on Moss. And so there's not an intersection issue there, just to clarify. And are there any questions for me?
Typically, we don't ask questions on a testimony. so
No,
that's
wonderful.
why, but thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
time. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's the only person that we did have signed up. Is there anyone that had intended to testify that did not get signed up? Okay, seeing none. This is an opportunity for the applicant. If you have any closing remarks or anything that you would like to share, this would be your opportunity.
I just did some research on it throughout the years, and I've talked to the ex-owners and stuff, and it was a diesel repair shop back in 1986, I think it was. From 1994 to 2006, Ted's Diesel was in there, and they did a lot of diesel repair and stuff like that. So they've been working on trucks there for forever. And I'm not sure how it got put into residential from that, but maybe that's what it was to start with. Who knows? But way back then, you never know, right? And then it was a rock. They did granite, and there's sort of they only did water and granite. That's the people I bought it from. And then we've had a trucking company and a towing company in there for the last 5 years. So it's been well used for the same thing for a lot of years.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any other questions for our applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
What is the will of council?
I'll make a motion for the annexation and zoning to BC Community Business Zoning at 11043 Moss Lane for the owner, Steve Lee, and also with the conditions of approval.
So conditional, and the conditional use permit?
Oh, yes, the use.
Conditions of
Yes.
approval as suggested.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
So that concludes our new business and public hearings. Does council need to take a quick break before we finish our unfinished business? No? Okay, well, let's go ahead and move.
Tomorrow I will, but not today.
Not today, okay. So we will move. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to Nampa, by the way.
So for unfinished business, 7.1 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for zoning map amendment to single-family residential 8,500 square foot. From that to RS7 to 7,000 square feet and a development agreement modification for this village subdivision. And it's on Canada Road for Hayden Homes.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, to provide an RS7 zone designation for certain lands commonly known as parcels R303920100, R30392011100, and R303900000 on the east side of North Canada Road and North Cherry Lane, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 3.34 acres, more or less, determining that said zoning is in the best interest of the citizens and consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, rezoning said property from RS 8.5 to RS 7, providing for recording, instructing the city engineer to designate property as RS 7 on the official zoning maps and other area maps of the city, subject to the terms of that certain development agreement entered into between the applicant and the city of Nampa, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing an effective date and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
And this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
Moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez? Yes. Brunner?
Yes.
Levi? No. Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Action item 5.2 is the first reading ordinance for the amendment of Title 10, Chapter 34, Design Review, Sections 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, stating that design review will be required for any new multifamily development. 3 or 4 unit buildings on a single lot are proposed to only require administrative approval, but greater than 4 units on a single property are proposed to require approval by the Building and Site Design Standards Committee, and this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-1 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the purpose of those provisions regulating design review in the City of Nampa, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-2 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the applicability of Title 10, Chapter 34, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-3 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the application process for design review, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-4 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the approval of design review permits, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-5 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the procedures applicable to the Design Review Committee, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-6 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the administrative review procedures, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-7 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the contents of design review applications, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-8 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the appeals of decisions and design review, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-9 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to design review and permit duration, amending Title 10, Chapter 34, Section 1034-10 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to design standards and requirements, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
So moved under suspension of rules. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded under suspension of rules. Is there any further discussion?
Question for, is Rodney still here? I believe the language that's been added to 1034-10C, where is it? As far as the primary facades, except for multifamily structures, the glazing requirement is not 25%. Is that correct? Is that the way that I'm reading that item C3?
I'm sorry, I don't have it right before me.
Well,
but
it states primary facades except for multifamily structures shall contain a minimum of 25% glazing.
And that was changed by
Right.
council.
So that's where it was changed, is in that location.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to ensure that that was the intent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And to clarify, who made the motion? I did. You were the first and Victor was the second.
Mayor, can the motion include 7.3, the summary of publication as well, or does that have to?
Yes, it certainly can.
You want to include that in
Would
your?
you like to include?
With summary of publication. I'll amend my motion.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Randy, for catching that. I should have. Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
7.4 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning RS 8.5 at 4510 Chicago Street. This is a 1.42 acre portion. And this is for Arminas.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 4510 Chicago Street, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 1.42 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned RS 8.5, declaring said lands by proper legal descriptions as described below be part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as RS 8.5 on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the yard to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
And this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Section 8 are pending ordinances that are just provided for information purposes. And the last item on the agenda is an executive session. I would ask for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss legal ramifications of pending litigation or controversies yet to be litigated, but likely to be.
So moved.
Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer? Yes. Brunner?